Good evening, everyone. Not too many years ago, I had a member of the church call me and ask me if I would be willing to counsel with someone, a friend of his, who was deeply depressed, that he was worried about. Even though this person never attended the church, would I be willing to see him and counsel with him? And so, because this was a very devoted member of the church who was asking me to counsel a friend of his, I agreed, even though such counseling is really, it borders on impossible. Because if you're not open to having experienced the unity perspective, the point of view of unity, you're probably not going to be very capable of recognizing the truth that you need to recognize in a counseling session. Anyway, this person showed up, a guy, I guess he was about 35. He sat down and I asked him his name. I said, so what's going on with you? What's going on in your life? And we went back and forth about 10 minutes talking when he stopped and said, do you know of anyone in town that I can counsel with who is enlightened? Really, if I was awake enough or aware enough of that coming, I could have said yes, but you would never recognize him. That actually happened, and it's I've had a number of things like that happen over the years, but you roll with it because you're in the ministry, and you really can't punch anybody in the face anymore. It doesn't go well with your image. But everyone in the outer directed world is really lost in the limited ideas and the limited definition of life. And there was a guy on the radio on the way down tonight. He was talking about, he is actually a successful actor who's written a book, and he's trying to get a series produced. He was an actor on The Office in that particular program, which was very successful. But he said he's taken this property that he wrote to make a series of about God, and he just wants to explore all the different ways one can approach this mysterious something that most people sense may exist, but really the world is so much with them, they just deny it or ignore it. And he said he took it around to Netflix and HBO and different places where he thought he might get it produced. But in the end, it was turned down, and was turned down mostly by Netflix, that they said that it's too controversial. And he thought to them, you've got series on Netflix where you have naked actresses throwing food at each other, and you say this is too controversial? And he said Hollywood has a tendency to malign the idea of God in any way, shape, or form. If it has anything to do with leaning toward Christianity, there's reasons for that, but I think it's overdone in Hollywood. They will not be receptive to anything that smacks of some greater power than their own personal intelligence and intellect and things like that. Whatever the case may be, people are looking, therefore, for some guru, some master, some magician who will say the word and they will receive enlightenment and thereby live their lives in an enlightened fashion and be happy thereafter. And the idea of this is really the idea that people cling to the errors in their consciousness. They have been so long involved with the errors in their thinking that they're not really want to take them to task as possibly being the cause of their depression, anxiety, unhappiness. They're not willing to even consider examining their own thinking that may be required in them finding their way to a life of happiness and peace, joy and love. So that is the sin. The sin is the erroneous consciousness we were born, raised, educated in. And I guess the best definition of sin in the Bible, the definition used in the New Testament more often than not is sin means missing the mark. It's an archer's term. When somebody misses the bullseye, that is considered sin. So I guess it was used in religious ways to express the fact that you're missing something in your life. You're creating sin or having the results of sin. But a better definition of it came from an enlightened teacher, Dr. William Wright, who said, sin is being ignorant of your own suffering, the cause of your own suffering. Sin is being ignorant of the cause of your own suffering, which is a pretty good way to say it, because it has to do with the necessity for transformation in consciousness. And that is really what we in Unity, pursuing Unity, are all about. We are not necessarily hooked into the world thinking anymore. We have stepped out away from the traditional Christian concepts of life and sin and that kind of thing. But we've stepped out on faith toward the idea that it is possible to open the mind in such a way as to discover the true awareness that makes for happiness and peace, joy and love. You'd say it was insightful awareness to know how to live effectively instead of the way we live, being tossed to and fro by ever-changing limitation, everything that seems to interfere with our path, our desires, our goals. It just throws us down, we get upset, and many people become cynical. There's a lot of people, especially after COVID began, that have become cynical. They don't believe that there may be a way to find a life truly worth living, a life of freedom from the erroneous thinking of the world. But here we are in the process of doing just that, freeing ourselves from the erroneous thinking that has held us in bondage. We are seeking that divine ideal that Eckhart Tolle, the master Tolle, speaks about which is this mystical state of joy, which can be defined as mystical peace as well, in which the conditions and circumstances of the world in which we live no longer have or hold sway over the way we are going to think and feel. So as we enter this state, we more or less are in the world but no longer of it. This is where the Master of Masters said in his prayer, I don't want my disciples to be taken out of the world. My disciples, I want them to remain in the world and operate in the world, but I want them to be free of the evil of the world. And the evil of the world is, of course, this illusionary idea, illusionary definition of life, which comes to us in terms of separation. Jesus spoke to this in a number of ways. Here in Matthew 6:22, 23, it is stated this way: the eye is oh yeah, that got erased. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is single, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eye is fragmented, your whole body will be full of conflict. If then the light in you is out, how great is the darkness? And you could say, how great is the conflict? Speaking as the eye of the body. The eye is the lamp, saying that your eye, your consciousness, is the enlightened awareness. That is the light of your body. If it is fragmented, that is, if life appears to you to be in terms of separation, in which you feel separated from all others, separated from the conditions and circumstances in which you live and move your life, if that's the case, then you are fragmented and you will forever be meeting conflict and confrontation and unhappiness. You just have to look at the world attempting to solve its problems through strictly the mental state of ego-centered awareness, where everybody does live in fragmentation, thinking all others are separate from themselves. And so they feel the necessity to do whatever they can to manipulate, to make other people serve their personal point of view, their desires, their goals. So somehow or other they have to get others to surrender to what it is they want to have happen. Peace Pilgrim said it best when she said, all of these people coming to the table to discuss peace, really they don't come to the table to discuss peace. They come to the table for personal advantage. And that's why she said peace is so difficult to establish in the world. And she's right, because in the world people live in this fragmented idea of life. And so they are mostly motivated by fear, concern, and worry, and therefore they cannot have peace. And the whole object of our spiritual journey then comes to transcend the initial idea or definition of life, which is flawed. The definition that everything around us is a separate entity and people have separate minds and bodies that have no real interest in my self-interest. And we say, well, how can that be transcended? Because all of these people are all, you know, they're living in the illusion of life. But you can, through spiritual practice, you can look beyond their illusions. And you can bring about healing in all relationships when you're powerful enough to look beyond all the seeming limitations and fears and conflicts that people are living in and projecting. When you can look past them and see that here also is a soul struggling to find that mystical peace and joy of life. And you are beginning to know it because you are not responding, you're not reacting anymore to what people are saying and doing that would be insulting or, you know, counter to your personal idea of things, opposing you, berating your opinions or whatever takes place in the outer directed world of illusion. You're practicing not reacting to that, any of that. You're not reacting to the illusionary, fragmented I of consciousness. And that requires being able to take a pause when something comes at you, when someone confronts you, someone maligns you, or things happen that are really problematic and difficult. Instead of simply reacting in kind and trying to fix them, you know that if you're capable of choosing forgiveness, release, and your own peace, to choose forgiveness, release, to sustain your own peace, in doing that, you are bringing healing not only to yourself, but you're bringing healing to those others and that person. And while they may not recognize it at first, eventually, and not too soon away, not too far away, they will begin to acknowledge that there's something different about that response that you made, because they will never leave them, that you did not react the same way everybody else they know reacts to their fragmented thinking. So you see, this is a difficult journey. It's a difficult journey because we have to take to task our own fragmented awareness. We have to begin to realize, I've been living in that idea of life, and it only causes more conflict. It only causes anxiety. It causes depression. So this is our calling, to acknowledge the at-one-ment so completely that we are capable of being healers. We are capable of taking that holy pause and not reacting to the limited things that occur in the world of unenlightened beings. And so this is embracing the at-one-ment. A Course in Miracles is forever touting, speaking about, advising us to enter into. And I will share this with you from the Course. Heaven is not a place nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness. and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness, and nothing else within. What could God give but knowledge of himself? What else is there to give? The belief you could give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and of your true identity. And you have done a stranger thing than you realize. You have displaced your guilt to your body from your mind. Yet a body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing of itself. You who think you hate your body, deceive yourself. You hate your mind, for guilt has entered into it, and it will remain separate from your brothers and sisters, which it cannot do. Imagine if you were stranded on an island and you had no one else. And you had just these few pieces of paper explaining the reality of consciousness. How you could take it within, and then when you finally were rescued, you would always remember that this is the one thing that kept you going. You decided to practice this ideal, which was easy on this island. But now you have to come back into society and practice it. And we have to do that because we are karma yogis. We follow that path. We're not renunciate yogis. We don't withdraw into a cave, into an ashram, a convent, and try to get holiness inside ourselves. We remain in the world, we work in the world, we live in the world, we have relationships in the world, we carry on our life in the world, but we are always in the practice of the truth, which is heaven is not a place nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness and nothing else within. That's when you hear me say, everything I look upon, everything I see is only God looking back at me. How will you treat all that you look upon? When you recognize that it is all sacred and worthy of your compassion, worthy of your releasing any condemnation, worthy of looking past the seeming limitations that they seem to foist on life and on you sometimes. Can you imagine doing that? People in the New Age think that mastery is mind over matter. You're going to use your mind and make that world out there conform to your vision of the things you want, and that's going to make your life heavenly. That's not it, folks. Heaven awaits those who take to task their own awareness and become resolute in knowing how joyful it is to be at peace regardless of circumstances. What? How joyful it is to know this peace, this mystical peace, regardless of circumstances. That is mastery. Mind over matter works for young people who are, traveling around and seeking to get a big hit, find a way that they can get all that they want from the world, and then they're going to be happy, and they have to find out it's not going to work. But this is the truth that makes us free when we're willing to practice it. What could God give but knowledge of himself? That is, God's not hiding. It's only that our minds have been badly conditioned so that we see through a limited guise of awareness. And we don't acknowledge that we can actually see beyond the limited thinking and concerns and projections of others, and we can see the essence of their being, and we can acknowledge that and be healing that. What could God give but knowledge of himself? Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God. Treat it that way. What else is there to give? The belief that you can give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and of your identity, of being a divine emissary of the truth, of the presence of God everywhere. You demonstrate that the presence of God as compassion, as love, as peace, as joy, is everywhere. You see that? That's the problem. People say, where is God in all this? Well, God's not missing in any of it. God is always present and available. It's only that people are not present and awake to be available. And that's what we're doing. We're practicing being present, awake, and available. Just say that to yourself inwardly. Just say it. See if you can take hold of it. I am practicing to be aware, awake, and available. I am practicing to be aware, awake, and available. So it is that in living in the illusion, you have done a strange thing. You have displaced your guilt to your body from your mind. Yet a body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing of itself. You who think you hate your body deceive yourself. You hate your mind, for guilt has entered into it, and it would remain separate from your brothers and sisters, which it cannot do. So here we are practicing the impossible in the ways of the world. It's the practice of the impossible. To try to get the world to conform to what it is we know we will be happy with. You may have moments of fleeting pleasure, moments of when your vengeance, for some reason or other, you took vengeance on someone and you saw them get miffed by it. How stupid it all is. How insane all that is. And how insane will it seem to you when you are starting to have these spiritual experiences where you really see people changing before your eyes and coming to you and asking you, how can you be who you are? How is it you're always at peace? Why are you always happy and free? It's going to happen if you continue in the practice of the truth. That there is one presence, one power in all the universe waiting for us to align our awareness with it. And we do that through spiritual practice. We have to. It's not a casual thing where you say, oh yeah, I'd like to have that. It's not going to do it. You have to be going out into the day and have made your meditation that morning and brought your affirmation with you that will sustain you and make you capable of pausing whenever things aren't going the way you would personally want them to go. And then you pause and know that in spite of that, beyond that, you can still choose peace and not react, just choosing peace, choosing peace. So we're going to practice that now as we listen to these Tibetan bowls, which are calibrated to enact and create a vibration in the 7 consciousness chakras that give life to the mind and manifestation of the body. And as we listen to that, we relax and let go. The only thing that keeps us feeling anxious is what we're thinking at any given time that is not in keeping with knowing that life is God. And I am God's life, and I am beloved of this Creator. So just relax in that awareness, breathe into it. And then when we get to that place where we want to transcend the thinking of the world, gently bring to mind this mantra. Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God waiting for me. Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God waiting for me. Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God waiting for me. refined level of consciousness, we will offer the names of those who have been submitted to our prayer list. As the name is called, just recognize that you are one in the all. You are one in the all.
Laura Phillips, Chester Phillips, Amanda Phillips, Harvey, Anna, Judy Kennedy, Marissa, Bobby, Nancy, Sally, Laura, Jay, Barbara, Madison, Bridger, Aaron, Jason, Jackson, Riley, Kristen, Shane, Sarah, Adam, Haley, Oliver Elder and Dad, Joy Lanzano, Olivia Fernie, Susie Wirtz, Tom and Judy Stelmack, Rachel and Ryan, Dave Harper, Erica, Jason, Spencer Hurst Cobley, Teresa, Mom Toth, Eric Peterson, Vince, Max A., Kate, All Mothers Everywhere, Sue, Eris, Petrus, Dara, Debbie, Marche, Wayne, Maria, Tanya Hubler, Randy Heiner, Chris Krnick, Aaron McCarthy, David Booker, Sandy Spahn, Kathleen Monet, Lavinia and family, Unity of Boulder. And you can call out a name at this time if you'd like to do so. Sandy Chamberlain, Sandy Bigtree, Anya, Santusha, Minecraft. We see this healing light surrounding the prayer box and all the people's names that have been submitted out throughout the month. We see them healed physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us participate in the vision of the divine. Everyone in this Boulder community recognizing the presence of that divine love we acknowledge to be God. And this going out to all the people sharing the state of Colorado with us, and it expanding throughout the United States of America and throughout all the cultures, nations, and continents of the world. Humanity waking up to its divinity, and this bring forth the new heaven in earth, with harmony prevailing and peace prevailing throughout the world as we pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. Those of you online can scroll down to that place on our website where it says donate. You'll be given the different ways you can donate to Unity of Boulder. Let's all bring to mind and bring into our hands that gift we'd like to make to Unity. And let's bless this gift with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. Amen. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen. We will have our regular services on Sunday. I will continue in the series of talks, The Flaw in the Course in Miracles. This Sunday we will all share in a particular way of being awake to the true self within us. That will be at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Santisha will be taking care of the second service at 11 o'clock. We have tea and cookies for those of you who would like to stay and chat just through these doors to your left into the bookstore.
And the Sacred Feminine group will be meeting tomorrow in the bookstore at 12 noon. You're all welcome.
Don't forget that this meeting on Wednesday night is going to be at 6 o'clock for a while. We'll be moving probably starting next week to a Wednesday evening alternative healing. We'll pick particular elements that people experience in sickness, and we will relate the alternative way to heal those particular ailments. And we're not quite sure how the format will work out, but we probably have some discussion after we look into the particular modality of healing. So, to everyone, you can either join us for tea and cookies and conversation, or you can have a good night, all of you.
Thank you.